a few weeks ago, I also got to do, oh, excellent. I also got to do another talk on vulnerability, and I said there that vulnerability is kind of what I do. I help people become more vulnerable, because what we're doing is finding that power that is within us to know that we move beyond vulnerability when we know who we are, when we know our own experience, our own power, our own presence. We don't really need to feel vulnerable because we're just being the isness of spirit. And so that's what I would like to move into today, the vulnerability, power, and possibility. The affirmation for today is I step into the power and possibility that vulnerability brings. Brene Brown said, vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And so I went through all of these notes that were gifted, and I love that the concept that everyone is going through the same topics. And what I love about being kind of the observer and the outsider is that I get to look at these notes and go, I'm going to say this here and this and change this and move this over here, because some of the language I just find so fascinating that we would put almost a limitation on our faith. And so the concept of vulnerability being a gateway to power and possibility, I think that it's a threshold. Vulnerability, power, and possibility are already present. Power and possibility. Possibility is infinite and endless. It's the intelligent mind of the divine expressing and expanding. Power is present. It is always there. And so looking at vulnerability instead of a gateway is something that holds two things separately, right? There's something keeping two things apart. So it's separation. It's keeping things apart. Whereas an archway or a threshold, think of an archway is an open space where two things are presented to one another. So I came up, there's possibility, power, and transformation in this conversation today. And I was really thinking that possibility plus power equals transformation. And these things aren't separate. They are one equation that is spirit unfolding for our highest and greatest good. So that archway, being an archway to our power and our possibilities, is our acceptance of stepping out onto the skinny branches and presenting our vulnerability to one another. There is nothing separate from us. There's nothing separating you and I, not even this technology. We are infinite oneness and powerful presence. One of my favorite authors and spiritual teachers is Linda Martello Whitson, and she wrote in Divine Audacity, every one of us is capable of expressing in any moment something of the nature of God. So vulnerability, this concept of possibility, the first part of this beautiful equation that we are all a part of, the possibility. So every single one of us has the nature of God within us. And if we understand that power that is, we can have faith in ourselves as we step in and upon those skinny branches of community, of connection, of even getting to know ourselves on a deeper level. The greatest gift I ever gave myself was being vulnerable in my own personal space and allowing my mind to articulate the nature of my own being. Being vulnerable with ourselves, to know that, ooh, somebody just bumped up against our boundaries. Did we even know the boundaries that we have that are being bumped up against? So vulnerability creates this unique opportunity for the power of possibility to make itself known. To recognize that as we step on to those skinny branches, vulnerability is actually our superpower, to be super engaged with who we are and still being able to step into conversation, step into a room and be connected with one another. We need to be open to express ourselves. We need to be open to share the light of who we are into this space and into this room. So vulnerability helps. The first person who's vulnerable in a room sets the stage for everyone else. If you're in a space where you're having a difficult conversation, I know I've been in some board meetings that are like, whoo, we've got some board members with some ideas. Oh my goodness. And unless someone is in that space that can be vulnerable to say, I love that idea, but let's bring it back to the whole of the community, those kinds of concepts, then there's this release that happens within all of us in that space. Someone took the reins of being vulnerable, and that allows each and every one of us to permission to look at that for ourselves. How can I meet their vulnerability with my vulnerability? It opens up amazing possibilities. It dissolves barriers, reduces the experience of disconnection, and it opens the door for a greater awareness of the divine presence within each and every one of us. Possibilities are endless. The possibilities are always present. Infinite possibilities, eternal possibilities. And what are the possibilities that we are open to are the ones that we are engaging with. And what vulnerability does for us as an individual is open the door to amazing possibilities for growth, for evolution, for that feeling of divinity that is within us. And being vulnerable with ourselves, to know who we are, to know that we are worthy of whatever it is that is the good that we are seeking. It's vulnerable to ask for what it is we want, even in prayer. Even in prayer, it's vulnerability that is showing up as we ask that highest expression of who we are to reveal itself to us. That is a beautiful place of possibility. Ernest Holmes wrote, "And thoughts are things. Everything in the universe is a unique individualization or expression of the one thing, which is cause of all things." And I just feel like when we get to be vulnerable in spaces, in communities, in meetings, and in all the stuff that we're doing, when we get to be vulnerable, we are that powerful presence, the expression of the one thing, revealing itself to the power and the presence, revealing itself to that one thing, which is the cause of all things. And so when we show our true self to everyone in our vulnerability, we are showing one another the divine. Brene Brown wrote, "Vulnerability is not about winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up even when you can't control the outcome." I have a beloved friend who doesn't start anything if they don't believe it's going to be perfect. Yeah, you know people like that? I know a few. I might even be one of those sometimes when it is something that's scary. And so stepping out onto those skinny branches and allowing this awareness of who you are, knowing who you are, the power that is within you, the possibility that anything could happen. That's embracing who you are. We don't avoid vulnerability. We don't avoid that opportunity to be deeply connected with one another. So thinking about this, thinking about being vulnerable as a superpower, what would your life look like if it was your cape and not your baggage? What would your vulnerability look like as you walk into a space you've never been before or a meeting you're regretting? What would that feel like if you knew being vulnerable was your superpower? What are the things that you could accomplish or foster in your willingness to be vulnerable in your life? So possibilities are infinite. Possibilities are everywhere. And we get to add our power to those possibilities. As our energy, where our mind goes, the energy flows. We know this, right? As religious scientists, science of minders, where our thoughts go, our energy flows. And so there's possibilities of infinite opportunity everywhere. Where we put our power, where we put our focus, where we put our attention is everything. I always think in spiritual practice, words are beautiful. We get to use all these pretty poetic words, but if you are not feeling the truth behind what you're saying, those words have no meaning. The energy that you bring into your body temple As you speak the word, you know it is already so. That knowingness in you is the power of the divine revealing its own nature. So possibility plus power. This is a part of the equation. The possibilities are there. What power are you giving the ones you want to be harvested? What possibilities do you want to be entertained in your life? I was thinking about all the synonyms for power: courage, bravery, faithfulness. These are beautiful expressions. And there is a power in vulnerability when you are willing to share your true and authentic self, when you are willing to show the world your true self and not hiding that light that you are underneath the bushel or the basket. To show the world who you are is to engage in the power of the divine that is within you already. Authenticity is another superpower. Vulnerability, authenticity, they go hand in hand. They're one thing. Knowing who you are is the greatest power and gift that you could give yourself and your community, the very world at its biggestness. You get to be that powerful place in your life and in the lives of your community. So being courageous, being brave, being faithful, that is the feeling of power. When you know what you are saying is the truth of who you are, that is the fuel in the lamp. That is the fuel in the fire. And so there is power in sharing who you are. The possibilities are endless when you speak your truth. Amy Poehler wrote in her book, Yes, Please. It is very hard to have ideas. It's very hard to put yourself out there. It's very hard to be vulnerable. But those people who do that are the dreamers, the thinkers, and the creators. They are magic people of the world. We have so much magic in us. We have so much magic in us. And I know that CSLers are cultural creatives. So you are magicians. You have the power of the word behind you, and you are the gift that you give yourself and your entire community. So that power of authenticity, that power of vulnerability, living out loud, as our theme is for the year. When you are shining your beautiful, magnificent colors of everything that you are, it becomes the starting point of that authenticity that paves the way for us to stand in our creative power for both individuals and collectively. The beautiful gift that we give in our livingness out loud. We give everyone else the power and the permission to stand for what they stand for. Sometimes it's so difficult to stand in your power. There's tons of things going on in the world right now, and we can feel small inside of them. We can feel small. And it's those things that people are, those people who stand up and stand for something, they have the courage of something so powerful, so magnificent, that they know who they are so powerfully, they're willing to march in the face of their enemy. And it's for a higher good. It's for a higher good. Whatever it is, the messy stuff that is in the world, it is happening for the highest and greatest good. Because as we endeavor to create a world that works for everyone, you know what that means, unfortunately, is listening to everyone's opinions and being okay with it. Even when those opinions rub up against us, if we have what's in us to be free, then everyone has that same experience. So living from this place of awareness to have the ability to change and transform, vulnerability helps that. Power of knowing who you are helps that. Brene Brown wrote, there is no intimacy without vulnerability. Yet another powerful example of vulnerability as courage. Community is a beautiful way to become intimate with your own being, your own understanding of who you are. Community has this way of showing who you are to yourself, reflecting back to you where it is we're still growing as a community. Where is it that we're still looking to harvest some lessons? Where is it that we're still needing to know more about what is in me that is being triggered, that is being reflected? There's a power in knowing who you are and knowing when you found a safe place to explore who you are. That's the power of vulnerability and community. When you find your people, your confidants, there's something in our body that tells us we're in a safe place. You know, that fear response. It also has a place where I've just walked into a safe place. I've just walked into a room full of loving people that are accepting me for who I am. There's this energy about it. Just like, you know, when you've walked into a room and everyone quiets and your first assumption is that they were just talking about me, that they must have been just talking about me. Because why did they stop talking? That same energy is palpable when you walk into a safe space or you sit down with a friend who listens to you, listens to your heartache, listens to your celebrations. There's an energy in your body that tells you the gift of these moments is real and palpable. So being courageous, being brave, it is the knowingness that is leading you to your highest good. Knowing who you are is being vulnerable, authentic, and real. But there's this interesting thing that's not all things take courage. When you truly know who you are, it is no longer brave. When you activate and actualize the wholeness of who you are, you no longer have to feel the anxiety or the stress that makes you feel brave or courageous for accomplishing something or getting something done. When you know who you are. So this little story I have in my back pocket from an experience I had at a Silomar. Oh, it must have been like 2011 or 2012, way back. And the author of Real Love was the keynote speaker, and he had this reputation for being upfront, let's call it. What are other words of ways of saying that? Upfront. Yes, we'll go with that. So, but he had this process of making people feel vulnerable. And knowing I was still wearing tons of masks at the time. I was just starting ministerial studies. I just finished prac. I did not stop studying for 8 years from start to finish. I did class. Like there was, I wanted to heal. There was stuff, there's like cauldrons and trunks of things that needed to be released from me. And I was all in when I found this teaching. I was all in. And I think when you find people who are all in from the first class, mentor them, mold them, love them up. So here I am. I'm at this retreat at Asilomar, and there's probably 500 people, 600 people in the room. And he was looking for volunteers to come and have a process with him. So in front of 500 people, I was like, of course, I'll have a process. I will be in my accepting of my role here. And so he got up, and I didn't even know I still had all these masks. And so I go up on stage like this. I have this big smile on, like, okay, you're not going to break me. You're not going to open me up in any way. I had that belief about me. And within moments, he's like, he let me know I was wearing a mask. And he made me sit on his lap. And he is very fascinating. And so I'm sitting on his lap, and he's like rocking me like a baby. And I was not uncomfortable. I'm an extrovert. I'm Leo. I was born under the sign of the sun. When there's a light on me, what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. So I'm sitting on his lap, and he said, you're wearing a mask. This smile is not a real smile. I want you to take it off. I want you to stop smiling right now. And it was hard for me because I'd been smiling for 40 years. 40 years I had this mask on. And so I worked really hard. I got the smile off. And then he began the process, and he was talking about all this good stuff. and I made everybody laugh. There's 500 people in the room. Being myself, I had no problem being in that space. And someone came up afterwards at the end of it and said, "You're so brave. You're so brave. You got up and you just had that process done in front of all of these people." But when you're in the awareness of this is for you, this is for your highest and greatest good, this is the power that is for you, it doesn't take bravery. And someone came up after they heard that person say that to me and said, "That didn't take courage for you. You were in your element. You were in your element. What I love to do is find out more about myself, clear the baggage out, and make people laugh." So I was in my element in that experience. And so being who you are, it doesn't really take courage. It takes courage and bravery to get to that place where you're willing to, without strings, without conditions, without hindrances, being your true self in every moment, being impeccable with your word, in every moment, trusting who you are and why you're here, in every moment, knowing what is yours to do. And that starts over every single day. Every single day. That's the power of vulnerability. Getting back to returning to that beginner mind, getting back to returning to that place where it takes courage, it takes bravery, it takes that inquisitiveness to establish something new in your life, to know more about yourself, to engage deeply, because we're not done. We can practice until perfection, but perfection is only perfection when it's perfect. Otherwise, as Linda Martello-Whitsett would say, practice makes progress, because the only perfection is the divine perfection that is in you already. What are you practicing? So practice the good things in your life. Practice being kind, being generous, being loving, being unconditionally listening to someone when they are speaking their truth, even though it doesn't look like your truth. So this opportunity to be vulnerable. So possibility plus power equals vulnerability, or vulnerability equals possibility plus power. All of it is vulnerability brings us to a place where we can deeply connect with ourselves, deeply connect with one another, and deeply connect with the divine. To being vulnerable to that awareness of who we are. Ernest Holmes said, "We are to view ourselves in the other and behold God in all." And when we can get to that place, to see that we are reflections of one another, if we want the power and the possibility in our lives, we get to see it in others. We get to explore all of that. Even if we don't want to see what it is that is being shown to us. If we are divinity made flesh, then every single one we are in front of or engaged with is divinity made flesh. If we are wanting true freedom for ourselves, they too have true freedom. Vulnerability invites us into that powerful experience of living authentically and the collective possibility for transformation that happens as a result. So the exciting part of vulnerability is that at the end of being it, during all of it, is the exercise of transformation. Mark Nepo wrote, "The sweetness of living comes to us when the very humanness we regret and try to hide, our seen flaws and shameful secrets, are worked by time and nature into a honey all their own." Whatever it is that is going on, it is perfect. The isness of spirit is the business of the divine, and we need do nothing. We need do nothing. The honey is already in all of it. The sweetness is already in all of the sticky stuff. Whatever it is that is becoming is already perfect, whole, and complete in the mind of the divine. There's power in that transformation. It's thinking, oh, that's powerful, that we have the same spirit in you. There's the same spirit in you. There's the same spirit in me as a caterpillar before becoming the butterfly. So before becoming the butterfly, the caterpillar is already that. The power to transform from goo to perfection. No one else has had that, your dark places. No one else has had my dark experiences. No one else has had the audacity to get out of all the sticky spaces I put myself into. And that goes for you as well. You have that power to get yourself out of any sticky situation. It is within you. You are the master of transformation. Remembering that we were once little atoms floating in the abyss. And now look at you. Now look at you. You have the power to create radical change in your life and in the lives of your community and in the world. You are worthy of the faith you have in yourself. You are worthy of the faith you have in yourself, in the power and in the presence that lives and breathes and has its being in you. And in the abilities and the capacities that you have to be brave, to be vulnerable, until you are no longer brave and you're just being you. Vulnerability is a superpower. You are infused by the divine in all that you are, and everything that you need is already within you. It could be no other way. The love that you're seeking out there first comes from in here. The joy that you're looking for out there, the laughter that you're looking for from others must first come from in here. And vulnerability is the superpower that will get you to your highest and greatest good as an individual and as a community. Being willing to have the sticky conversations as a community is how you move forward. It's how you move mountains from here to there, tearing things down and rising things up. That comes with vulnerability and being allowed the space to shine your sacred self. I love this quote by Desmond Tutu. My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together. We can only be human together. And so all of my growth, I am radically grateful for all of those people who pushed me, who knocked me over, who opened doors. All of those moments, the 2.3 billion years it took to get here in this space and in this place and in this endeavoring. It's the power of vulnerability, the willingness to look at yourself in the mirror and trust that there is a power that is greater than you are, that is moving and molding and is behind absolutely everything. Linda Martella Whitsett wrote in Divine Audacity, she was actually quoting somebody. I need to find out who she was quoting. But she wrote, I am in you and you are in me. Where you are, there I am. I am sown in all things, and when you gather me, it is you yourself who you gather. This is a beautiful opportunity. This is a moment of absolute awareness and transformation, that we can be our highest good because it is already in us to be. We can deliver the light that we are to the world and unwrap the gift of every day when we are willing to unwrap the edges of who we are and share our light with one another. So in that, I am supported I am stepping into that power and possibility that vulnerability brings. And I trust that this life has good things to bring to me as I bring good things everywhere I go. Thanks so much for listening.